Welcome, folks. We are here with Rachel Dietrich. She is an awesome human in my life, not just on the member dev side, which is why we're here to get some insight from her, but also because I've gotten to know her personally. And the quick background is that Rachel does all things at Front Row Dads. I'll say that, so that I don't label her in one way or another. She has been a huge part of growing that community that I'm a part of. And we built the Vault, which is Front Row Dad's membership platform, their online platform, which we'll talk a bit about today. But Rachel brings a wealth of insight in so many other areas of growing, managing, leading a community, a membership community, in the different ways that it requires. And so we might talk about some systems, we'll definitely talk about some challenges, some learning, all that stuff. The intent of this case study is to share what Rachel has learned over the years. So for future Rachel or anyone else who's getting into this world and questioning, like, what does it take to start, grow, and manage a membership community? Because that's one of the biggest questions I get, like during sales conversations or inquiries, especially with people who are new at this, who haven't had, put the practice in or had the experience. Are like, what's all involved here? What's it like to manage, membership events or keep people updated on things? And especially now, Rachel, because of the virtual world, the physical world. That's what I love about Front Row Dads. That's why it's the community that I'm most embedded into, is because we get a bit of both worlds instead of just purely online versus purely in person. So it's a great hybrid. Another quick background before we get into it with Rachel is that Front Row Dads is a membership community for guys like me who are primarily fathers and are putting family first. So it's an organization that's fairly entrepreneurial, but it's basically for just intentional fathers who are aware that they could be better at home and can, at least I'll speak from my truth, can tame the entrepreneur in them, can tame all the other stuff. And that's where it's just been game changing. So I have so much gratitude for our dads. I've blogged about them. I've done podcasts about them. I'll continue to just shout as much as I can. And we can even talk about the live event at the end, Rachel, that I know is a huge thing for FRD. That's going to be awesome later this year. But outside of that, welcome. Thanks for taking time to do this with me. And anything outside of that I missed before we jump in?
No, that was great. I'm really excited to dig in. I wish I had, when I was getting started, I wish I had a Rachel to consult with. But I had other great people like you. So yeah, let's get rolling.
Sweet. Fantastic. Okay. So first thing, perhaps you can give people a sense of the membership model and just high level, like, how is membership structured at Front Row Dads?
Yeah, we've tried to keep it really simple. So it's subscription based. We have monthly and annual right now. We've wanted to play around with those terms, but we've had a lot of success with the terms being monthly, annual, cancel anytime. And then we've evolved into 3 levels. We started out with 1 level. Every member had the same accesses. And then as our events grew, like our in-person retreats, as they grew to a certain point, we then made that, retreat an event exclusive to this new level 2 that we evolved, right? And then when COVID hit, we decided we needed more online events. And so those 2 levels turned into 3. Where the first level is just your basic community accesses. Second level are these longer online events. We call them online summits. And then third level is those in-person retreats. So that's what we've evolved into to this point. There's always room to evolve it more as we introduce new events or new channels of communication like Telegram. But we try not to evolve into new levels before we're ready for them, which is a hard thing to not do, right? Because you almost like you're comparing yourself to these other communities and what they offer, and you're like, oh, we should be offering that. And
yep.
If your community is not ready for it, if they're not asking for it, then yeah, don't evolve into it yet. But
That's big. Thank you for that. That's actually really big, because one of the things I've noticed when working with all the clients over the years is that it's more common for people to come in, whether they're new or they're growing their membership. They come in hot with all these ideas. Like, I got this subscription, I got this plan, I got this plan. I'm like, cool, that's great. Now tell me how you're going to give different benefits and access for these different levels, right? And this ties back from a business perspective to what I talk a lot about as a customer journey. Like, what's the journey someone goes on? Like, how do they start? Then where do they excel? And then where do they end up if there is an end part, in which case they become like mentors or feedback to the community. So there's different ways to position that. But what I love that you pointed out is keeping it simple and then waiting for when the next thing's asked for instead of over strategizing. So on that note, have you and John and anyone else on the team sort of felt that every now and then you could be distracted by, oh, we should do this, and then you have a method of like kind of taming that distraction?
Yeah, this is so funny you bring this up. At our annual planning session, we did actually it was the quarterly Q4, we did our SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And when we got to threats, this new one came up. And it's a threat that may have existed in the past, but we just hadn't acknowledged it until this time. And it was the threat of wanting to be a people pleaser, wanting to deliver for these guys who we love so much, wanting to create whatever next feature would accommodate them or would help to make them a successful member. And for example, it's like, we have a lot of really great conversations that happen but they happen live and nothing really gets archived like in a forum, online forum, blog structure. So someone suggested, can we be archiving these conversations? And I thought, well, yeah, we totally could. And I could see that being a benefit, because then I can, when this thread someone starts talking about virtual assistants again, we can send them, like I saw how it could be helpful. Mm-hmm. But when you weigh that against other things that might want to happen, you go, how many people are really asking for that?
Yeah, right.
Would majority of people really use that? And then to go back to the filter of how we decide if an idea is to stay or go, then what we do is we look at our core values and what behaviors we are trying to nurture in our group. Mm-hmm. We look at core values, we look at whatever big opportunities we have on the horizon for the next year, and we say, does this idea align with those opportunities? Or we look short term. For example, with that whole forum idea, we said, will doing that help us to get more people registered for our live event in December? Mm-hmm. We just look at our next big goal and we go, will that align with that? And that's our filter.
I love that.
Looking at rocks, looking at core values. Yeah.
Very cool. So I'm hearing a little bit about like being cautious of the n equals 1. Like there's always someone that wants something, especially in growing communities. And then it's easy for our minds to be like, that would be awesome. And then we get into how mode, right? When we start, whereas it sounds like you all have a very healthy filter of staying aligned with core values. And if this thing or this request is going to align with the next goal or target you're trying to hit.
Yeah.
What about feedback? Because you're one of the few people that I give feedback to. Like, do you measure those surveys, and do you like look at that in comprehension? Because like some people send surveys and don't do anything with them. Whereas I'm curious if you look at that, and does that inform any of your decision making?
Yeah, we use surveys quite a bit. We survey after each event. I will say with a small team that there are seasons that we go through where some surveys get looked at more thoroughly than others. Just depends on what we have the bandwidth for. But the reality is that if something needs to happen, if change needs to be made, it's going to come up again and again. It might come up in different ways. It might come up through a survey. It might come up through a member providing like one-to-one feedback. But I truly believe that if we are meant to evolve into a new direction, that feedback will present itself, whether you want it to or not, over and over in different forms.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I love that. I love that. To back into a question I meant to ask about subscriptions, out of curiosity, has FRD found that it's better for what are the right words here? Because better might not be the best word, but what I'm asking is like, is the annual or monthly advantageous for you all? And do you see like much better retention with that? So for example, I'm asking this because I think this is helpful for people who are often on the fence of like, how do we manage, or like, how do we model this? Do we just ask someone to be a monthly member and then always be on the hook for creating content and engagement, so they're reminded every month of why they're paying to be a member? Or have you had more success with the annual option?
Yeah, that's a great question. We definitely get more guys opting. Majority of our members are subscribed to the annual plan. And I'd like to believe that that's because we market this community as a 1-year minimum journey, customer journey. And we've done that in the way that we've oriented or established our pillars. So we have 6 pillars that we touch on throughout the year. We rotate in and out of each pillar every 60 days. So after a 12-month period, it can be said that you will have attended events that are focused on each of the pillars throughout the year. You'll be able to know, the member will be able to know what success looks like in each pillar as a result of attending these pillar focused events throughout the year. So most guys, that's how we market it. So I'm assuming that most people sign up for the annual because they also, for that reason, but also that they've decided that this is a commitment for them and that this matters. And what do you go in super, like, name one thing you're all in for a month? Like, so when we're talking about, making this investment for yourself and for your family, I think the annual investment just makes more sense, because you're like, all right, I'm committed. I'm going, doing this for at least the next year. With that said, if I'm paying attention to the members who are leaving, most members who leave, it is upon renewal. It's upon renewal. So maybe that's to say the resell strategy isn't there. Maybe they feel their journey is complete. They're ready to move on. They got what they needed from the community. That's okay too. Don't think you're ever going to keep everyone always. So there's that. But also I'm probably seeing that because majority of our subscribers are annual. So it would make sense that majority of those who leave are annual. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. But I think that's helpful because one of the things you pointed out is whether it's a niche like Front Row Dads or it's something else like Learning to Garden, like getting a commitment from someone up front that, hey, I'm in this. I realize there's room to grow, to learn, is an important part of the sales pitch. So however you're pitching your desire to have someone join a membership, it's not as applicable in situations where there might not be that long-term investment. And maybe there is a use case where like, yo, I just need a month or two and then I'm out, because some memberships are modeled that way. So that doesn't surprise me, but I think it's also valuable for any listeners that if you're, to reiterate some of your good words, Rachel, if you're, creating an intentional customer journey and there is a path and there's definitely room to grow over time, then the annual seems to make more sense.
Yeah. And our whole business, like our parking spot in the market is, we'd like to think, is that we want our guys to have the most powerful conversations with each other, conversations they're not having at backyard barbecues. And I don't know that you could arrive at that in your first 2 weeks or in a trial period. So our whole mission is to create relationships between our guys. And I mean, unless you're a genie, it's just tough to make that happen in a month. And that's another reason that we might even adjust the terms to be on for the minimum commitment to be quarterly, just to really drive home the point that like we're here to create relationships. And if you're going to commit, like this is our commitment. But we did at one point, we tried the trial thing because we thought, oh, maybe if guys get their foot in the door, we've got an ace onboarding experience, like maybe doing that trial thing will just, bring more people because they're like, oh, I don't know. So we tried that. And it did not work for us, but at least we tried. So now we know. And when I say it didn't work, I just mean none of those people became members after the trial period. So I could say something about our, conversion tactics, but ultimately we felt really good saying like, these are our terms.
Yep. I dig that. I think what comes to mind too, which I can share because, and it's this lends to further educating people on some of the awesome systems that you all have in place, are that we use Telegram for real-time chat and communication. And this, I was just scanning it the other day, and a couple of members were having healthy debate about the investment in something, and the financial piece has a role in that. So when someone gets something for free, like a trial, for example, there's not much of an investment. It's more like, hey, I'm just here to taste a flavor, like at the ice cream shop. But if you just walk in and you're like, yep, I want the 3 scoops, you're so committed, there's conviction there. And it's a whole different dynamic, because honestly, what I've experienced, when people trial something, they're almost on the fence about it. They are on the fence. They're almost in resistance mode. We're like, I don't think this is for me, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Whereas the investment is like, I know this is for me, so I'm going to commit, even though I know that there might not be connection immediately, to your point.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, we have monthlies, but we also have oriented the cart in a way that gives them there's an upsell piece to it, right? So even if they have decided, I'm just going to commit to this, for a month and see if it's for me, then there's this whole video we recorded to tell them like why you might want to consider annual. And then they have another opportunity to make the decision again. And if they don't, like, our system's super user friendly if they ever wanted to upgrade. So, so.
Cool. I love that.
And then one more thing I'll say about, not doing trials is you have to think about what it does when someone leaves the group. It can make a wave in the group.
Right.
So we really want to minimize the amount of attrition or regrettable attrition at that. So we do that by, doing more work on the front end, having a stronger filter for who we, let into the group. And yeah.
See, that's exactly why I want to talk to you. That's sage advice, is that you can put the trial in place, but then you might deal with a lot more. How do we solve for retention and attrition? Whereas when there is no trial, then you have a little bit more upfront work to position the value of the membership. But boom, when they're in, they're in. And now you can work on, the things like helping them stay engaged and connect. So I think that's super valuable. Something else I want to talk about, because you briefly mentioned it, is that something that is really cool, and it's a big draw for where I've found value in Front Row Dads, is the hybrid approach of having access to online learning, but also the in-person events.
Yeah.
So I don't even have a specific question. I'm more curious because we work with clients that sometimes are completely digital. In fact, that's the majority of our clients. And then there's some that have basically run a whole in-person thing, and now we're starting to learn about, like, how do we even get into digital? We've always been an events company, for example. So tell us a little bit about that, whatever feels right. The first question I would have, if I had to create a question, is like, is balancing both of them worth it? Or does it create a lot of complexity?
Yeah. This is we could have a field day talking about
Okay,
this.
so this is the question.
Yeah, because of the fact that we are hybrid,
Mhm.
because our mission is to create relationships. Well, one could say, yeah, you can create relationships digitally, right? Like through Zoom meetings and um but being in person, there's nothing like it really. So when it came to developing our site with member dev, we really had to keep top of mind everything, every feature we decided to activate. We had the question we had to ask ourselves time and time again was, does this support relationships? Does
Mm,
it support relationships? Because one could argue that having a content library does or does not support relationships from happening.
right.
One could argue that. Of course, we landed on doing the content library because it's just a very familiar feature for a membership community to have. And we got asked enough times, hey, can't make the live event. Is there a replay? We got
Right.
asked that enough times where we're like, all right, we need the replay. So
Yep.
that was a no-brainer. But when you're faced with something like, where do you communicate? What will be your lines of communication? Most sites give you the ability to activate like a direct messaging feature, to have forums. And that's where you have to get really, become really mindful of how it is that you want your guys to communicate.
Right.
If you, yeah. So see, I can get a little ranty about this, but the
Well, let me
hybrid,
drop.
yeah.
Why don't I drop into another question, because
Uh-huh.
I understand that that's a very broad thing. Something that comes to mind is that because Front Row Dads has a very powerful component of the membership experience, which is events, and I'm going to say in-person events, retreats. And then you have the whole online side, which you definitely grew and leveraged during the pandemic and continue
Yeah.
to support. Do they feel like two different things, or do you find ways to blend them more often?
In the last 2 years, they existed as two very separate experiences.
Mhm.
Actually, sorry, in the last 2 years, well, yeah, two separate experiences. Because
I think they are. I agree with that. Keep going.
yeah. And now we're at a point where hosting the online summits obviously came through because we had to be online more.
Mhm. Right.
If we wanted to continue creating relationships in the group.
Right.
We weren't hosting in-person retreats at that size anymore, so we had to go online. We're at this really interesting place where we could move away from those online summits. I think we could move away from them and create, for the 6 online summits we had, we could create 4 very similar in-person experiences. We could do that. But I'm afraid that we're still in a space, society's still in a space where there's enough people who are like on the fence about traveling. So we're committed to keeping the online stuff, but you just have to play it by ear. I mean, 2 years down the road, we might decide that we're going to be a company that only meets in person.
Mm.
Then we have to lean more into like, maybe we do local chapters, I can't say all that, I can't, I honestly can't think too far into the future of
Sure.
how a hybrid model is or isn't going to change. I just know that right now we try to keep our site, the features on our site, we try to keep them always pointing towards how someone can get connected to another member, as opposed to just like we don't want to be connecting our guys just to content, because from there it's like, okay, they read a post, but do they feel inspired to then have a conversation with another guy? If the answer is no, then we're essentially blocking our mission,
Mhm.
So yeah.
I love that. I love that you continue to bring things back to that. And clearly you and John have been focused it even feels like relentless is the word I want to
Mm.
use, because you continue to bring that back. And I do think it's really easy to see the use case of you shifting into in-person events. And I can say that something I'll share, because I think this will also be valuable to listeners, is like, if your membership has the opportunity and the team, the skill set, just like FRD, to put on extraordinary events, then you're going to find yourself with demand, a wait list, et cetera, which are things you've probably experienced, right?
Yes.
And then you have a very clear indication, like, we can grow this. We just have to do it more. I assume, not having thrown these extraordinary events, that they do have their own challenges, though, because like in-person events are unique from digital events like online summits. But what's really cool is that you're balancing both. You're holding space for both, especially like you said, to serve people during the pandemic when it was really needed.
To serve our members is why we did online summits. We're finding ourselves in a point now where our members feel served in other ways. So now we're like, well, we don't want to get rid of the summits necessarily. So maybe, and this is what we've just like had recent developments on in the last like literally 3 weeks, is maybe the online summits, instead of being the sole place where our guys connect, it becomes like more of a lead gen tool, right? Kind of like webinars, where it's like, how can we get guys who are interested in Front Row Dads to get a taste, to get the experience of what it's like before committing to an in-person, or before committing to becoming a member. So the intention of that event has sort of, has changed, with our members now being more open to traveling and whatnot. We want to provide them in-person experiences, but we created such a magical system and created so many processes behind the online summit that instead of getting rid of it, I do believe we can just shift that to becoming a space where non-members can learn about what the community is like.
Totally. Okay. That's great. Yeah. You mentioned, and I felt your body language where you're like, all the things that we did to support the online summits. Is there a way for you to help us understand, like, effort required to host a 50-person in-person retreat versus a potentially 150-person online summit? Like, do those compete? And are you getting to a point where you're like, well, as you've shared, where you're like, we know we could probably just do the retreats, but like, hosting the online summits, which are powerful experiences, I'll share, because it's a bit of learning, it's a bit of connecting, it's a bit of just feeling as much as you can feel without being there. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Do those still require a lot, where you're like, ooh, it's a lift to get one of these going, and then it's a breath of like relief to be like, that summit's done? Does it feel like that? Or is it more, you got it on a system, like, boom?
Oh, it's so systematic now.
Nice. Okay.
It's this beautiful ratio of like systematic to, we're still adding like novel things here and there. But we've done the summit. I mean, this will be our second full year. So we've had 13 summits to this point. But even after 4 summits, we had our processes 80% complete, I'd say. But yeah, now even when I look at the calendar, we have few planning sessions for summits, because it's pretty seamless in terms of activating the plan and then executing the summits. And then coming out of the summits, like, we've got automation on automation set up to guide those non-members to membership, to guide the members who attended. We can guide them to connecting with whoever they connected with at the summit. So yeah, the system is tight, and now it's just making the little adjustments to I think make these summits to just drive more traffic to the summits. Because for the last couple of years, we've really just been advertising the summits internally to existing
Mhm.
members because it's a feature. Attending the summits is a feature of,
Right.
one of the membership levels. But now it's like, how can we pour gas on the fire? Because the thing about summits is they're scalable. Like you could
Yeah,
have 1,000 people, so we sit
true.
at about 100 guys on the call right now, but we could get 1,000 and arguably still keep the intimacy because you have the breakout room feature. So
That's a
I
great
want to pour
point.
gas on that fire, but with in-person events,
Yeah, scaling it
they're
trickier.
yeah, they're trickier. And to be honest, I'm not a ace, event coordinator, so maybe things just come harder to me. But in-person events seem pretty uh like they take quite a bit of effort for
I
me.
believe it. I'm always blown away by them, and I always go home thinking like, man, that had to have taken a lot of great people's energy to pull off. But I'm also really pleased to hear that you guys have found a model because other people have challenge on the digital side. Like, how do we get all these things um, designed and integrated? So I have a basic understanding that I know you'll use tools like Zapier, right? And this is a nice segue to talk a little bit about the digital side, is that you have tools like Zapier and others in place that play nice with our platform and play nice with other things you use, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And what about that world? Because that world's kind of interesting to me, where I'm feeling kind of like a grandpa as things evolve, and I'm like, holy cow, they did what with what? And I feel like it's been a while since you and I have nerded out on like an automation speak, but I feel like you're quite talented and skilled in that world. Like you don't even have to ask us sometimes for things. You're like, oh yeah, we already automated that. We didn't even need member devs help.
Yeah. Give me a sec. I'm gonna pull up our tech stack because I made a list and
Oh, that'd be cool to hear. Yeah.
it helps me or helps organize my thoughts on because yeah, it is really robust. Rachel's role.
One of the things too, I'll give context as you're looking
Yeah.
that up, is that you all started working with us a few years ago. You're previously on Mighty Networks, which is a great platform. It has its strengths. A lot of its strengths are in the engagement piece. So they're founded by previous Facebook leadership. And I always speak highly of it. I think if you're trying to create a place where you just want people to have as close to a private, like white labeled Facebook experience, it's pretty close. The clients we've served well who have decided to transition into us have generally been interested in, I need a place where there's a lot more flexibility for content design, whether it's like libraries, courses, call recordings, like you said, et cetera. Um, the Not the community aspect, but also like event integrations and then just overall customization, is that some platforms like Mighty Networks are great and powerful, but usually the answer is no if you want to get something customized, or it becomes
That's what
this
we faced. Yeah, that's what we
crazy
faced.
enterprise. You got to go through all these hoops. Whereas that's
Yeah.
a place where we found success is our model is to help customize a lot of things without tons of hoops to jump through. So for the benefit of listeners who may be using tools like Mighty Networks or might just be surveying the landscape, how would you distill some of the main like key decisions to use something like MemberDev, if you can go back? Because I know that was a few years ago when we engaged and did that project. Was there some clear indicators where you're like, this is a box we need to check so that we can move forward?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the singular thing that was creating enough problems, unfortunately, so speaking about Mighty Networks, there was a feature that was creating enough confusion for our members where I thought we have to turn this off,
Mhm.
and then I reached out and I was like, can we turn this off? It was the direct messaging feature.
Okay.
It's not fun when a member reaches out to another member, but he doesn't check his
Gets
Mighty Network.
ghosted. Yep.
Yeah, because he never got traction with it because maybe that's on us, right? And maybe our team didn't, have the onboarding experience that would suggest that, hey, you need to pay attention to your direct messaging. So I'm not going to put the blame on a company. I think there's ways we could have helped
Sure.
that. But yeah, so there is enough members being ghosted. There was this insane lack of traction with the site itself. And so I just I think John just said it. He was like, "Hey, doesn't Ali in our group do custom membership?" And I was like, "Well, that'd be worth looking into." So yeah, we had our scope call and I was like, "Oh, you mean to say I can turn that feature off, or I can turn that on, or oh, you like I can have this if I want to down the road." Like that's a beautiful thing where you're like, I don't know if I need it now, but just knowing that the potential is there made me feel like, you know, we can be in this for the long run together, because I trust that like if I needed to develop it, you know, your team would like help scope it and make it possible. So after the scoping call with you, I was like, this sounds like something that for sure will cover us for the next, you know, like 5 years. And that's all that really mattered in that moment. I was like, all right, we're getting into it. So,
sweet. Thank you for the kind words.
Yeah.
On that tech stack?
Yeah, I did.
What you got?
Okay. How do you want me to approach this? Do you want to lead with a question? Because
I would say give us a overview. You don't have to list every single thing unless it feels right, but give us an overview of like what's involved, because some people will be like, oh yeah, I just need that platform and then Stripe and ActiveCampaign, I'm good to go. But my sense is that you have a much a different list than that.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah. So
or maybe talk about the core tools first, because that's helpful for people to understand, like, what are the big things I need to think about?
Yeah. So I think any tech stack can probably be categorized into, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 buckets. So one bucket's like the tools that you use to deliver your product. So for us, it's like our community tools. Maybe, you know, first is member dev, which we call the Vault. It's called the Vault in our world. We have the private Facebook group. We have Telegram. So those 3 spaces are where our members can expect to interact, which also takes some managing, right? Maybe some moderating. But yeah, so those are spaces for our members to interact. And then another bucket is our tools that we opted into because it just helps our operation, our systems to be more effective. So that's where we, you know, use Zapier, G Suite, obviously, TextLine. TextLine is where we can communicate with members one-to-one, or we can shoot out announcements to text service. ActiveCampaign's our CRM. So again, another way to automate campaigns. I mean, it's email marketing, right? And then we also get to store some member data there. And then another ops piece is Stripe, Thrivecart, you know, payment cards. And then Canva for designs, QuickBooks for finance, Google Analytics, Vimeo. Those are just other tools that we use. But we also have, this is a last one on my list, is we use this tool called 90, and it's based off of the book Traction. It's essentially what we use to host our team's weekly meetings, quarterly meetings, and annual meetings. It's a business operation model. So that helps our whole team to stay focused on, you know, what are our big goals throughout the year. But yeah, this tech stack has evolved. It evolved dramatically when we pivoted from Mighty Networks to member dev, because we were able to do so much through member dev that I was able to remove like Samcart, you know. We closed the public Facebook group. Like, we definitely shrunk the tech stack as a result of input, which is great, which I'm so glad that we did. But yeah, now we haven't really changed this tech stack much in the last year, because I'm pretty happy with all these services. but hey, it's, I don't think we should ever get comfortable. I think there's new
Mhm.
tools being designed all the time. So I might even, go and like compare what my plan is versus like Zapier, they've got you hooked
Yeah,
when you
right.
have like when you're running like 20 automations through them. So there have been significant price increases to our plan. So I
Mhm.
think on a maybe not quarterly, but I do think on an annual basis, teams should review their tech stack
Right.
and what each thing is costing them, and can someone else do it better, or do you even need it? You know, things like the private Facebook group. That is a feature of our membership community. Like, oh, become a member and you'll get access to this Facebook group. Well, we've recently asked ourselves, the team internally have asked, like, do we want our guys on Facebook?
Mhm.
Like, sure, Facebook's sticky. Most people are on it. Sure. But do we want our dads getting lost in the sauce that is Facebook?
Totally.
You know?
It's a great question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much in there. Thanks for sharing because I just felt warm feelings knowing like, oh, MemberDev helped us with things and reduced our tech stack because the world of online memberships has inherent complexity, and the simpler I can help make it is kind of part of the mission we subscribe to at MemberDev. Is like we want to be a tool that can do a lot of things, and so that is warm to hear. So I appreciate hearing that again. I also think that it's very sound advice, like you said, to do an audit every now and then. Is that you get really comfortable with things, and there's some tools I really love, and like when they shake things up, I get a little uneasy, like, oh, why are you changing it? But it is natural to both audit the tools you use and then kind of accept when tools you like make changes, because generally there'll be some resistance, but they're doing it for a greater future. I've observed.
Yeah,
And,
that's some, yeah.
and also, you brought up Zapier. Like, it is really interesting to me because I'm a program. My core competency is programming and design, and like, so at first it was always hard for me to realize some of the capabilities of like no code solutions like Zapier. But then I'm like, wow, this really does empower teams to get things done faster, because previously we would have had to gone through all these requirements and scope something for people. Whereas a lot of times the first intuition is like, let's make sure there's not a zap first before we go
Yeah.
ask for it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I deeply appreciate, and I think sometimes I forget how valuable this is, but I deeply appreciate the extent by which I am limited in my
Mhm.
customizations that I'm able to make on my own through
Mhm.
membership. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if I wanted something new, dramatically new, I'd have to know enough, I'd have to have articulated it enough myself to be able to ask your team.
Mhm.
And that's a great filter because you don't see me just pinging over ideas being like, hey,
Right.
can we do that? Like it almost forces the company to like think about what they really want, before coming to you, and then odds are you can do it, right? But I just love that I like with ClickUp is, there's so many things you could do in ClickUp,
Yeah. Right.
which I'm sure is like works for so many people out there. But to be honest, it's too many decisions for me to make, or it's too many points of customization for me personally and for some people on my team. So the framework that I see, or the capabilities I have when it comes to customization and member dev, it's just the right amount. I don't get carried away. I don't get lost trying to like make something new, you
Mhm.
know, which I just love. Like, I think it's just easy to get down the rabbit hole of what's possible. So,
Cool. Thank you for
yeah.
that. And I agree. I have some interesting feelings about ClickUp, where it's capable of so many, and it's capable of so many things. And in my opinion, too many, where I only go at a certain depth. We have a team member named Melody who will go even deeper, and she's created some things in there. I'm like, holy cow, this is crazy and awesome.
Yeah.
But we've just made a decision collectively as a team over here that with our core projects, like we did with you a few years ago, we're not going to ask our clients to be in ClickUp anymore. We're going to manage it in Google Docs and good old fashioned email, because it just became too much. And then we're like, some people aren't even using it. And ClickUp's a great tool, which I'm grateful for, but their pricing model is kind of crazy as you start adding people
Totally.
with different roles. So I think there's definitely something to be said about your point of having just enough customization and opportunity, but still some healthy guardrails of being like, oh, I actually can't tinker with that. Because I've also experienced people that want to control everything. And that's fine. I understand the desire, but then they get into some messy situations.
Yeah.
And it's like, how did we even get here?
Yeah, no, you guys have excellent guardrails, and it has probably saved us thousands of dollars and going down maybe unnecessary rabbit holes. So yeah,
cool.
It's big.
Thank you for that. Thank you for all those kind words, Rachel. I'm going to quickly shift now. And I just wanted to give you some space to talk a little bit about the culture. I like observing different cultures with clients we work with, especially as they're growing membership communities. There's no specific thing here other than what's something that you'd share that you're kind of proud of, whether it's like the way you all work or the communication strategies, other things, because I'm hyper curious on understanding how people communicate and grow businesses consciously, especially when there is some let's just going back to the degree of complexity. Like, you got these retreats, these in-person events, you got the digital side, you got all types of other things like member onboarding bands, which we haven't even discussed. So tell me a little bit about culture. Like, what comes to mind, things that you have found successful that you're proud of or that you'd share with other people that are getting into this world?
Yep. And we're speaking on culture for the community we're creating, or culture for our team, like
either one. Or.
Yep. It's funny because it's actually probably the same
across both. And that's even better.
Really helpful. Yeah. So one thing I'd say we're really proud of that we're faced with on a weekly basis is we're definitely relationship centric, if that's a word, like we make our decisions. If someone asks for a refund, or you find yourself in those situations, we 90% of the time are making the decision out of the best interest of the member. And then of course you also have to remember that you are a business too,
Right.
But I'm pleased to say that when we communicate, for example, the refund thing, when we're communicating with a member, we want them to feel like they are not a statistic. They are not just an account that was created and that gets closed,
right,
but that they are a person and that we care about the investment they made. It's like if someone, maybe wants a refund because they couldn't plug in, we don't, in our culture, like, we don't lead with defensiveness. We really definitely don't want to do that. So instead it's like, we're just inquisitive. We're curious. That's another huge piece of the culture, is like, we would rather inquire, maybe like, I'm gonna, that's a rabbit hole.
Yeah. I like how you catch yourself.
I know, because I just want to get into an example. I want to.
No, I get it. Yeah, you got where your mind wanted to go. And
it's we'd rather that person cease to be a member if that's really what's right for them, but we want them to know that, like, we just want what's best for them. We don't we never want to find ourselves in a position as a company where we need someone's money, or we think that we need someone's money. What we want or need is that is for that member to feel like loved and appreciated by the environment they stepped into. So yeah, we're people centric for sure. We want to protect those relationships. That's something we're proud of, and we make a lot of decisions through that. Another thing that I don't know if we take pride in it as much as it just, like, I think is the glue to this whole thing, is this element of playfulness. Because in a digital world, even in person, but especially in a digital world, it's so easy to copy paste.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to take what someone else is doing and replicate it. And through those transactional by nature movements, it's easy, I think, to lose your element of play, to not insert a little slang or humor here and there. And yeah, we don't ever want to lose that. So for example, an example of playfulness is like we did a no sugar September challenge for our guys, right? And we're at what, day 20 through the month. So I'm imagining there are some members who are really struggling with this no sugar thing. So as a team, we decided how can we insert play here? You know, 'cause it's such a big part of our culture. I sent out at random a bag of beans, like tasty snacking beans that have 0 added sugars, and then just wrote a little note that says, "Hope you beans staying away from them added sugars."
I love it.
Now, I'd like to think that if that member who got that package stopped being a member in a year, they're going to remember when they reflect on their time Front Row Dads, they're going to remember the relationships they made and then the beans, most likely. So I really think like, leveraging play when we can is super important. And then I think this last kind of piece of our culture can be said for our internal team as well as our membership community. We're all about speaking candidly, and John and I call it real talk with repair. So it's saying what's on your heart, speaking honestly, of course, but then being open to a discussion. I don't know how to say it very well, but
I think that's perfect.
Real talk with repair.
Okay, so this is a perfect place to wrap because we are getting close on time. And what I want to do is reflect some things back to you that I get the unique privilege of doing now because I'm a member. Whereas normally when I do these case studies, I'm not. So I'm excited to do this. So the first is I'm gonna traverse backwards and go in the reverse order that you shared. So real talk, the candid conversations is so present in Front Row Dads, whether we're in Telegram or Facebook groups or the in-person environments, is that I've always appreciated and even been sometimes surprised and blown away that like we can have conversations and hold space for things that are wildly debated in other realms. I mean, like I'll see some stuff and even apparent, like I've become pretty in tune with being at peace with a lot of things that humans debate, but I'll see, but every now and then I'll get a little like, oh, that's going to spark some controversy, but it never does. There's just this beautiful part of the culture that's like, hey, we can hold space. This is part of our ethos. Like everyone has an opinion and that is beautiful.
Yeah.
Play. I also love that is that I personally think that a lot of the humans, businesses, organizations can benefit from play. And this is something that's so real to our community because most of us, if not all of us, have children. Yeah. And it's like, let's just pause for a second, especially if something gets so damn serious and say, can we play with this? Can we laugh? Can we smile? The in-person retreats and even on the summits, even on the podcasts, the laughter, the pattern interrupts where we can be serious and have fun is beautiful. So I wanted to reflect that back that I definitely feel that part of the culture. And the last piece, which was your first piece, is how personalized you all make the member experience. So I remember when I first joined, I was nervous, but I got this cool care package, which gave me some confidence, like, oh, I got this dope hat and a book. And so it's like instantly like, yes, oh, I'm part of this, even though I'd never met anyone physically. Then I joined some calls and it was just a warm environment at that time. Just like, hey, what's up? You know, even I don't know if you still do this, but John used to do new member calls, which was cool just to connect with them for like 15 minutes. And then I was fortunate to make my way to the retreats early on and experience how personalized those can get, whether it's this water bottle that I literally drink on almost every Zoom call I'm on, to just bonding with other members and people a part of the community and really feeling at home. The other thing I'll say on this personalization piece, Rachel, is that it doesn't stop. Like, I got a gardening kit from you all like a year plus ago where I was like, oh my gosh, I thought it was all about me at first. And then I realized like, hey, they did this because we're on more of a, like, let's say just nature focus, but it didn't matter. I was like, holy cow, they sent me this. They knew me and my family would get out and do it, which we still use that to this day as we work on our garden. So I definitely feel that. I've felt it. And I'm not just saying it because you're front row dads or you're even a client member of it. It's just that you all do an extraordinary job of these high touches that make you feel the personalized touch that other people don't do. And it shows, it rings through the culture. So thank you for that. Thank you for being a part of that, because I know you have a big hand in all of that, and it really shows. And I hope that this feedback is helpful for anyone else listening, that when you truly do take time to personalize the experience all the way from like the onboarding to just regular touch points, like the fun beans, like it goes a long way. I feel that.
And you know, as the community grows, we want to continue to be able to provide those unique touch points, but you also have to ask yourself, like, what part of this could be automated? We spent an hour at our planning session talking about how do we automate some touch point system, but without feeling automated.
Right.
And what we landed on was that, all right, maybe we can add in like an automated memberversary campaign, but we're just going to continue, since our group is still at a size where it's like manageable to do unique touch points and gifts like that. We're going to ride that wave for now, and we're going to do it as long as we can. And ways you can automate is like, you can send yourself like routine reminders that says, hey, look at the new members list and pick 3 people. Like, that's kind of stuff can be outsourced, but what brings the whole team joy is kind of just doing it at random sometimes.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Well, Rachel, thank you. I want to respect the time we created for this. I really appreciate you showing up just to share and just being an awesome human in general. Anything left unsaid?
No, but I mean, yes, right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
for round 2.
But no, we've covered so much, and I'm just grateful for all the curiosity on your end and for the space to be able to share, because what we've created and what we're continuing to create is going to change. It's going to change lives. So it is changing.
I would agree. No, well said. Beautiful words. We'll end there until the next time.
All right.